It's been 3 days now. I've rested, taken the medicine, like a good girl. I'm feeling a lot better. So we head to the hospital. I'm almost back to normal. I really don't feel like we have to do this, but he makes me. He cares so much for someone who keeps saying he doesn't care. It's nice out, clear and sunny. I look out the trolley window. The town is sparkling in white. I didn't pay attention to any of this the last time we were here, so I'm taking it all in now. But there's a problem. It's all going by. So fast, so much glare. I'm getting a big headache. Well, that's what happens when you do that. He's got his usual smile on his face. It's evil. Very evil. And it makes me happy. Very happy. I'm too embarrassed to say anything, so instead I look directly ahead. And no headache this time. Black Iris keeps smiling. He probably finds this all funny. Oh well. We get to the hospital, sign in, get shown to the same waiting area. I get called, walk into the examination room. It's the same doctor from before. He gives me one look and smiles. Very good. Looks like you're almost over this. I'm prescribing you a few more days of antibiotics. If you start feeling ill again, take these. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. He finishes his exam, hands me the prescription, shows me out. We go to get the prescription filled. They tell us they'll call us over the PA system when it's ready, so we go to see Black Iris's old professor. She's fast asleep when we get there. So quiet, so peaceful. I don't want to wake her. The windows open a crack, just like last time. I can feel the breeze. It's tickling the curtains. The vase is right where I left it, but the flowers are different now. We stay there for a time. She continues to sleep. We look at each other and decide to leave. We close the door behind us. A man is walking toward us. Someone Black Iris knows, seeing as he's calling out a greeting. Fancy seeing you here. Did you come to pay your respects? His eyes are fixed on the door we just walked out of. That and my guest here had a pretty bad cold, so I brought her to see a doctor. A cold. He narrows his eyes. He thinks something's up, obviously. I have to say something. It's all my fault, and I'm fine now. The suspicion evaporates from his eyes. He nods and laughs. Black Iris isn't so pleased. He turns to the man. And what are you doing here, Dexter? I feel like I've heard that name before. I think it was from Rook's flashback, I believe. Paying someone a visit, of course. What else? Wait, no. Dexter is the guy who they got all their contracts and stuff from. Dexter rummages in his coat pockets. Brings out a music box. Very cute, with a red ribbon tied on it. A very nice gift indeed. The professor. Wrong. An acquaintance. And this acquaintance of yours, the duller. Wrong again. It's just a normal disease, so to speak. Huh. He's had enough of questions, looks like, so he goes on the offensive. So, Black Iris, tell me, have you seen Maria yet? Or Maria. I'm so used to saying Maria from Umineko, but yeah, let's just talk like a normal person and say Maria. Black Iris stiffens. He shuts himself up. Again. That very same place where I can't reach. Then he closes his eyes and shakes his head once. That's none of your business. Perhaps not. Dexter smiles, easily. Too easily. The PA system crackles to life. They call several patients' names, including mine. So, my prescription's ready. I'll go get it. Wait for me in the front lobby, okay, Law? I nod. Dexter watches Black Iris run off, and he turns to me. I'm not getting rid of him. Not that easily. Great. You two have become quite close, I see. Good, good, but you must tell me. Is it working? Yeah, she's totally a mnemonicide. He's like talking to her as if she's like one of his employees, you know, like one of his underlings. Perhaps I shouldn't answer, but this annoys me, the way that question was asked. I have to respond. It is? Dexter smiles back at me, wryly. Then that's fine. As you can see, he really dislikes me, so he's always on his guard. Why's that? He takes a while, looking for the right words, and then... I stole the most precious thing in the world from him. I look up at him then, and just as quickly look away. It takes me a lot, all civility I have, to nod. Huh. So, it seems like Dexter was the one to steal Black Iris's memories. We don't know what those memories were, but I'm gonna guess that they have something to do with Law. Maybe not directly, but at least indirectly. I'd see. And you don't want to know more? You don't want to tell me, do you now? You're right, I suppose. I do try not to talk about it as much as I can. Sure. That's why I won't ask. See, like, she's really talking as if she's kind of familiar with him. But they're being really vague so as to make it seem like it could just be a conversation that two random strangers could be having. But at the same time, like, her attitude changed completely when he started talking to her, so I'm almost positive that they know each other. I smile and leave him there. I can feel him watching me for a long time. But the next time I look back, he's heading in the opposite direction. That night, I leave my room quietly and head downstairs. I proceed slowly, don't want to make any sounds, don't want to wake Black Iris up. Moonlight streaming in from the curtains, the living room's full of stolen light. And he's fast asleep on the couch as usual. I kept asking him to buy a bed, but he always gave me some excuse and never bought one. He's so stubborn. I know him so well. Know him so well that I can't help but to smile. I distance myself. Don't want to wake him up. Can't get too close. I watch his sleeping face. I can feel the tears. They're running down my face. You know what? I just realized her name is La, and mnemonicides seem to have names based on what they do to perform their mnemonicide activity. So I wonder if maybe La, she sings in order to erase people's memories, if she's one of those mnemonicides. I don't know. But it's not because I'm sad. I've been told that this is a reflex. I just cry. Can't control it. So I don't try, if this is bad. I can't see in front of me, no matter how I wipe my eyes. I want to see him. I want to see his face. I want to remember, but I can't. Because I can still hear what he said to me. Each one of us makes a choice, somewhere, somehow. Once that choice is made, then we remember, or we forget. It all depends. This is my choice. I can't think of another way. I'm sorry. What did your professor say? Good girls say goodbye with a smile. I'm so sorry. If that's true, I'm not a good girl. And so, goodbye. I see music sheets. I think that might be a clue as to what's going on here. I dreamed about the moon that night. It was pale and cocooned in wispy clouds high up in the dark. I peered up at it, or it peered down at me. I couldn't really tell which. It didn't really matter. The echoes of its song danced in the empty spaces beyond the rustling of leaves and the tinkling of snow. It was soft, so soft that I shouldn't have been able to hear it, and yet I did. I knew this melody. I knew it by heart. I knew it so well that it filled me up and drowned me from within. I could not breathe, so I clapped my hands to my ears. I didn't want to hear anything anymore, but it was too late. The sound kept coming, seeping between my fingers and into my head. There was no escape. It was beautiful and filled with tears. La, I think I'm right. I'm pretty sure I called this. That's gotta be it, right? So La just used her powers to erase our memories of her, I'm guessing. I got up off the sofa, but everything was still really hazy. Sure, I wasn't a morning person, obviously, but it was particularly tough today. Oh, don't get me wrong, I wasn't in a bad mood or anything. It was just, part of me was still dreaming, or at least it really felt like it. I couldn't focus on anything. I kept feeling like I'd been listening to someone singing. Yeah, we're Black Iris right now. And I kept feeling like La had been close beside me, but it seems he still remembers her, at least. So, La had to have been the singer of the song, right? Except that was completely impossible. This was Maria's song from so long ago. Maybe that's why I felt so ill at ease right now. I got up off the sofa quickly before any more unwanted thoughts rushed into my head. There were sounds coming from the kitchen. Rather, there'd been sounds coming from the kitchen ever since I'd opened my eyes. I could smell eggs and toast being cooked up. It was wonderful. I was starting to get really hungry. This was kind of unexpected. La didn't usually get up early enough to cook breakfast for me. I walked into the kitchen, and sure enough, there La was, frying pan in hand, and a big smile on her face. Seems like she hasn't gone anywhere, so I wonder what exactly she did. Black Iris, good morning. Cold out, isn't it? Good morning. Her voice was cheerful, and her smile was warm, but her eyes were puffed and red. Obviously, she'd been crying again. Take a seat, please. Let's eat before it gets cold. She could see that I was worried about her, obviously, but she kept bustling about cheerfully as if nothing had happened. This was her way. I'd learned that much in my time with her. Always dancing and sidestepping in order to make sure no one had to fuss over her. But was this not, in its own way, the most silent hypocrisy? For she fussed over each and every person around her. We took coffee after our meal, as had become our tradition. Now, ever since the first time there, she'd been taking lessons from Rook at Aroma, which is why the drinks she offered me grew tastier and tastier by the day. The funny thing was, she never drank the stuff herself. It was always some form of milk for her. If I had to guess, I'd say that was because she was painfully aware of how short she was. Now we're kind of going back to that cat theory. Because, I recall, him mentioning that he has a cat, and cats eat milk a lot. I don't know. And there's something about La that just feels very cat-like. Maybe I had it backwards. Maybe it wasn't that he had a cat and La is actually that cat or anything like that. Nothing weird like that, but maybe it's actually that he didn't have a cat. He just thinks he had a cat, and the cat that he thinks he had was actually La, or someone similar to La. Silly, of course. She could drink all the milk in the world, and it wouldn't help her in that regard. But still admirable in its own way. I took another sip. Silence filled the room. I wanted to ask her about the song. It didn't seem possible. How would she know about, much less be able to sing, that song? But still. La. She looked up at me from her mug of hot milk. I was at a total loss for words when her eyes met mine. How exactly was I going to explain this? I didn't see any way I could do so and still manage to keep Maria out of it, which meant... No, never mind. Okay. She was obviously curious about what I had been about to say, but she didn't probe any further. This was part of what made her such an ideal guest. She knew when to stop asking questions. Yeah, that's right. She was my guest. It was high time I started treating her like one. So I took care of the cleanup after breakfast. Now, I was in the middle of doing that when I opened the refrigerator. Oh, we were almost out of food. I'd have nothing to eat at all if I didn't go shopping soon. Hey La, I'm going to go grocery shopping today. Would you like to come? Oh, actually, I think I'll pass for today. I almost dropped the plate I was washing when I heard this. It wasn't like La to be evasive or to refuse to go out. I'd never seen her behaving this way in all the time I'd known her. First breakfast and now this. No matter which way you sliced it, I was in for an interesting day. Still not feeling too well. No, I'm fine. It's just, well... There obviously had to be some reason why she had become so tongue-tied this morning. But I decided not to press her on it. I mean, I certainly had days when I didn't feel like going out. Why couldn't she? Sorry. And she really did look sorry, so I smiled wryly, shook my head, and said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'm your guide, after all. I'm supposed to do things like this for you. Besides, to be totally honest, I kind of wanted to be alone." I cleared the table and washed the dishes after breakfast. I could feel La's eyes on me as I buttoned up my coat and wrapped my scarf around my neck. When I opened the door to leave, I turned to find her smiling back at me, weakly. The sky outside was gray and the clouds were ready to burst. I'd be lucky if I managed to finish shopping before the snow started falling. I walked toward the trolley station. Every so often, strangers passed me by. There was no one at my side. It had already been a month since La had first come to town. Enough time to forget my solitude. Enough of her to forget that I'd ever walked these streets alone. That was just the problem. Nowadays, I was getting increasingly impatient just being around her. Oh no, I'm not saying that I was getting annoyed or bored. Far from it, but whenever we weren't making small talk, we were just sitting in each other's company, reading books. We were cut off from the outside world, draped in total silence, but for the occasional turning of pages. But there was one thing I could always count on. If I were to just call her name, she'd always answer me, with a big smile on her face and warmth in her eyes that could thaw the iciest heart. The problem here was, I was getting awfully used to this. I couldn't understand it. How'd she become this much of a part of me? Thus the impatience. That's why I was making a concerted effort to treat her as my guest. It might be days or weeks, or maybe even months, but she'd be leaving this town sooner or later. That was what she wanted, right? Otherwise, why would she have to come to this godforsaken place to begin with? If we simply kept on going as we had, then parting was going to be awfully hard. Hard. For whom exactly? She'd be leaving this place with her memory of it entirely deleted. Nothing hard about that. Better stop thinking about this. In any case, I was at the station. No point in wasting any more time in useless pondering. Once I boarded the trolley and took a seat, I decided that I'd take a scenic detour. After all, it was going to take me all of 30 minutes to do my shopping. I didn't particularly feel like returning home that early. So, where to? Speaking of which, I hadn't been back to my apartment on 5th in an entire month. I'd cleaned the place up right before embarking on this assignment, but there was probably a layer of dust an inch thick everywhere by now. Might as well make an appearance there. A few minutes later, the trolley arrived at the 5th Street station. Now, 5th had a few things in common with my old hometown. The spidery roads and the twisting alleyways, for instance. But the difference, and this overshadowed everything else, was whereas that city was dirty and black with soot, this one was clean and white with snow. Pretty soon I was standing in front of my apartment's door. I dug into my pockets and found my key. This had been sitting inside my coat for how long now? I went inside. The lights were off, the curtains were shut, and the interior was dark. There was a fine film of dust everywhere, but otherwise things were actually pretty neat. I sat down on my bed and closed my eyes for a bit. 3 years, that's how long I'd been living here now. And yet, I felt no attachment to the place. No rush of emotion, no feeling of homecoming. Just my bed, and my desk, and my books, and a bunch of bric-a-brac that I didn't care much about. Well, then something on the wall caught my eyes. Wait a second, what was this doing here? I mean, this was a nice one-piece dress. Very cute, very well made and all, but it stood out like some alien artifact in my barren apartment. I didn't remember buying it for sure. Maybe someone had delivered it here on mistake. But if that was the case, wouldn't they have just left a delivery notice instead of unlocking the door and coming in? This didn't make any sense, but I didn't have any other ideas. Well, I was at a loss for what to do with it, but I knew what I wouldn't do. Throw it out. Might as well leave it here until the owner came back to reclaim it. After all, I wouldn't be living here until my work with law was done. And no one, least of all me, knew how long that would take. In the end, I locked up and left, with the dress still on the wall. I didn't know exactly what time it was. No working clocks in town, after all. But I did know that it was still well before noon. So I'd not managed to burn that much time at all. The steeple of the old church caught my eye when I stepped outside. Now, given all that had happened, the sight didn't particularly fill me with joy, but I had nowhere else to go, so hey, why not? The streets were all deserted. Strangers passed by each other in silence. Their footsteps babbled on concrete and mud before they too were forgotten. 5th was always this way. Not that this came as any surprise. People of my profession lived here. And so long as we were on assignment more than we were off, this would continue to be the city where memories came to die. Now, there was another church in town, on 2nd Street. It was much newer and larger than the one here, so most guys took their religious guests there, and not here. Eventually, the number of people who attended this church dwindled down into nothing. Now only the building remained, and it too was falling to pieces. I opened the door and went inside. I used to come here quite often in the past. Annalie once lived here. I visited him often enough. Yeah, okay, so Annalie was a man. So I'm still thinking that it might have been Law's father. Well, not quite. Given his position, the guy probably had a mansion somewhere. He too just came here to kill time. Probably. And that might have been the mansion that we went to earlier. And really, it wasn't so much to kill time as to take care of this cute little kitten who had made this place her home. Wait a second. Right. The cat that used to live with me. She was Annalie's to begin with. I just gave her a place to stay for a while. See, that's making it seem even more likely that maybe that means that he took in Annalie's daughter afterwards, after maybe either he died or lost his memory or whatever. Where'd she go after Annalie died, I wonder? Okay, so he is dead. So right now, I'm thinking that his memory has been altered a bit, and he believes that he took in a cat from after Annalie died, but what he actually took in was Annalie's daughter, who I believe is Law. Either that, or this Maria character, who we haven't heard much about. This church was where it all went down. Annalie, the cat, the gun. My memories of that time were vague at best. The emotions weighed down so heavily that even if I were to try to recall exactly what had happened, I'd completely fail. I do remember this, though. I didn't hate him at all. It was difficult to pull the trigger. I remember that, too. Annalie is dead, and so is Maria. I couldn't tell you what she and I were to each other. Maybe we were lovers, maybe we were just acquaintances. Didn't really matter. I never said a word to her about what I felt for her, and she never said a word to me either. What use was there in talking of tomorrow in a city that had no future, only a fleeting present and a dead past? I think that's how we felt back then. That was why we let the future go, because we knew that it'd melt away in our hands if we reached out for it. Well, to be fair, that feeling hadn't changed very much over the years. But back then, Maria was my life. I probably would have died in the dark alleys of my old city if it hadn't been for her. No one would have known I ever existed. This was all ancient history. I wouldn't even have been thinking of any of this if it weren't for that dream. Such a bad dream for such a splendid dawn. No wonder my morning today was a mess. I sat on one of the benches and closed my eyes. Time passed. Everything inside of me was quiet and still. And abnormal. If I came home like this, La was going to be worried sick about me. She knew me too well by now. I could just see her looking up at me, her eyes wide with alarm. No way. That was going to suck, so I finally stood up and walked out. I started walking toward the trolley station. The clouds were as heavy and gray as ever, but the snow hadn't started falling yet. Might as well catch some lunch at Aroma and go shopping after that. I hoped La would be able to fend for herself back at home. There was someone quite unexpected at Aroma when I got there. Well, no, not really. She was quite expected, but it was still kind of a shock to see her. Welcome. Oh, hi, Black Iris. Rook shot me a sheepish, awkward look as I walked in. So I turned my attention to Lips, who was standing right next to him, cleaning the countertop. Well, you see, kinda dangerous to make her hole up in her apartment till the heat's off her, so, I'm hiding her here. Any problem with that? Oh, and, of course Jackal's here, too. Uh-huh. I nodded, but, man, it was so funny watching him get flustered this way. Made me want to laugh. Come on, dude. Wipe that evil grin off your face already. I didn't do anything wrong, I swear. And I agreed with that. He hadn't done anything wrong at all. In fact, I'd say that for the first time in his life, he'd done something right. Lips, in the meantime, had polished the countertop with such relentless fervor that it now outshone the overhead lights. Now, I couldn't read her as easily as I could law, but it was still pretty obvious that she was feeling pretty embarrassed. Oh, I almost forgot. Here, this is yours, I believe. I took her gun out of my pocket and handed it over to her. She almost dropped the rag she'd been using to clean the countertop in response. You've been walking around with this in your pocket this whole time. Well, it's not as if I wasn't guilty of the same thing, but what am I supposed to do with this now? Point. But I'm still in the same situation here. But I'm in the same situation here. So let's see. Why don't you ask Rook to dispose of it for you? He's good at that kind of thing, after all. I was lying. There were a million different ways I could have disposed of that gun, but this one was the most interesting, you see. Rook cleared his throat with exasperation. I watched him as he began preparing to brew some coffee. This was getting more and more entertaining by the second. Looked like I made the right choice. Hey, tell me, what's been going on with you these days? I haven't seen you around these parts in forever. Oh, right. Well, I got pretty sick for a while, so now it was my turn to get all embarrassed. It was richly deserved, too. Only the most sloppy guide would let his guests catch a cold in the manner that I did. Man, how could ya? Rook just shook his head slowly. Lips, on the other hand, looked at me apologetically. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault, isn't it? Oh, that's how. Hey, all's well that ends well, eh? Poor La. It was nice in all of them to say that, but in the end it was still my fault that she had to go through all of that. I'd have to be a lot more careful with her from now on out, or from here on out. She's doing a lot better, though, eh? She off shopping for stuff right now? No, actually, she's at home. Rook and Lips looked at each other and then back at me. Obviously, this came as some kind of surprise. I was getting a bad feeling about the expressions on their faces, so I asked. What is it? Huh? But we saw her just a bit ago. Right? He turned to Lips, who looked bewildered for a second, but then nodded. Yeah, I saw her around the trolley station when I went out to buy some dishwashing detergent. She was far away, and on top of that, she was already in the trolley, so I couldn't say hi to her or anything. I thought you were with her anyway. She was at the station. Alone. Lips shot me a strange look, something in between a frown and a grimace. Too bad. There was something she wasn't telling me. Maybe she didn't want to say it, but I wasn't about to back down either. The staring match continued for some time, but finally she sighed and said, "Your superior was with her." Dexter? But they just met yesterday at the hospital, really. Unless something happened while I'd gone to get her prescription filled. Maybe they just bumped into each other. Pure coincidence, like, you know? Perhaps. This was obviously his clumsy way of making me feel better about the situation, so I nodded, but in actuality, stay in this game long enough and you'll know that there's no such thing as a coincidence. There was no way that Dexter could have just coincidentally come around here to shop, coincidentally bump into La, and coincidentally board the trolley with her. In other words, La had pulled the fast one on me. She'd stayed at home in order to meet up with him. I was in a particularly foul mood when I finally left Aroma. I had no idea what was wrong with me today. All sorts of unwelcome thoughts were clawing their way into my head. It wasn't about the news I'd heard at Aroma just now. Well, obviously I was worried about that as well, but right now I had more pressing matters, like the fact that I'd been walking around here in a haze ever since dawn today. Every single time I tried to focus, things slipped out of my grasp. I wasn't in any condition to go shopping right now, let alone do anything else more important. My head felt heavy, dull, and entirely useless. I felt drunk or hungover. My feet meandered about, no rhyme or reason to anything. I eventually found myself stumbling through the shopping district on 6th. What did Dexter say to me yesterday? Have I seen Maria yet? What did that have to do with law? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He was holding a music box in his hands. There was an acquaintance that he had come to visit, an inpatient at the hospital. So that was a present. The more I tried retracing the events of yesterday, the more I felt myself floundering. But a present, huh? Now that caught my attention. I started thinking, hey, why not get Law something? You know, as an apology for getting her sick. Come to think of it, she and I had gone shopping many times over the month, but I didn't remember ever having bought anything for her. So I started shopping by the various shops to see what they had. Now, there were lots of cute things the girls would like all over the shops, but I didn't really know which one La would want. Just then I saw some brilliantly colored hair ribbons in a window display. And I remembered. Irina, ribbon, hair, La. A ribbon, huh? She just might like something like this. Though buying it was sure to be an embarrassing experience. Is there something I can help you with, sir? The sales clerk said to me when she saw me wandering around aimlessly through the shop. Oh yes, I found what I'm looking for, but I'm not quite sure what color I should get. Oh, a ribbon. That's a wonderful choice, sir. It'll make a wonderful gift. I know she'll love it. That's nice, I guess. I was too busy trying to remember which color ribbon she'd worn that night to answer the clerk more fully. You'd think I'd be able to recall this at a moment's notice, but I found myself completely blanking on this one. How about red, sir? That's a popular choice. Or perhaps pink and blue. And there's always yellow for the girl who really wants to stand out. The girl was obviously putting on her best sales pitch, but I didn't hear a word she was saying. Something very, very odd was going on right now. I couldn't really get a grip on it. Ilya did my hair, you like? I'm plenty selfish, trust me. It's nothing, I swear. Sorry about that. And if you don't mind my asking, what color is her hair, sir? Huh? Her hair, sir, what color is it? You know, like black or red. After all, some colors match, some don't. I guess so. Her hair color. Just what color was that? It seems like he's slowly losing memory of her. I couldn't remember. Sir? The clerk sounded so far away. My head was such a mess right now that I couldn't have answered even if I wanted to. I'm sorry. I'll be back soon. And I managed to stumble out of the store. I picked up my pace. I had to get to the station as soon as I could. This is really brutal, actually. Like, they're losing the memories really, really slowly. Like, that's almost like the worst way to go about it. And from there, on to home. But everything seemed to move in slow motion. My feet, the streets, the world around me. I got onto the trolley. I almost fell asleep several times en route to 8th. I cursed myself every time that happened. When the trolley finally stopped at 8th, I jumped off and broke into a run up the hill. Snow burst from the sky. Everything went white. It was hard to see in front of me. I squinted. Everything was still there. The streets, the lamps, the houses, the people. Everything but my footsteps. With every disappearing footstep I took, I could feel something precious inside me disappearing as well. The snow was falling. It was falling just like this on that day a month ago. Right, I was walking aimlessly up this road. Kept going until I hit the 9th intersection, took the turn, headed straight through a grove of trees, and eventually reached an old crumbling house. I found a kitten sitting there at the door. The kitten was so cute that I... What? A kitten. My name, La. Don't mind me, I'll be fine. I see, you're a good man. No. I met a girl there. A girl who was standing there in the snow, tears running down her face. What was her name again? I could not remember. Not just her name. What were her mannerisms? How did she get mad when I teased her? How sweet and gentle was she? How warm was her smile? All gone. It was wrenching. I reached out to grab what I could, fragments, scraps, anything. But my hands were too weak and my mind was too blank. I had no more strength left inside me when I reached the door. I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. All I wanted to do was sleep forever. By the time I unlocked the door and stumbled inside, I was moving like a beggar through mud. There was a half-drunk cup of milk and a burgundy-colored binder on the table. I approached slowly, each footstep harder to take than the one before it. By the time I got to the edge of the table, I had a splitting headache, so bad that I went to my knees. The cup and table slipped and fell from their places. I heard a loud tinkling, so the cup had shattered to pieces. Pages from the binder flew through the air, landing every which way on the floor around me. The milk was soaking through the pages. There were words, sentences, paragraphs, all written in a neat and pretty cursive script. Everything was still legible, and so I read. Mnemonicides admit histories and physicals, progress notes, discharge summaries, patience. The word black iris kept appearing everywhere. What could that mean? I was thinking about this when my head burst with pain so exquisite that I almost closed my eyes. I collapsed onto the floor. Everything went dark. I was getting so sleepy. I could feel my eyelids drooping. Somehow I knew, if I just closed my eyes, all this pain would disappear. And I also knew that this was probably for the best. If you were my teacher, or if I were your teacher... Okay, next time when we get the chance, I hope. I'm sorry, Black Iris. I'm so sorry. These are all things that she said to him in the course of this visual novel. They're not like flashbacks that he's remembering, at least as far as I can recall. I blinked. Things were blurry, but I could see that someone was there. A girl. Someone I thought I knew, maybe. When she saw me, she broke into a run. She skidded to a halt before she'd covered half the distance between us. But then, something strange happened. She hesitated for a moment. She pursed her lips. She took a step forward. Another and another. She sat on the floor next to me. She gently cradled my head and set it on her lap. And then she started, slowly as if I would break if she went any faster, brushing the snow out of my hair. You should sleep a bit. It'll make things easier when you wake. I knew her. It had to be. But how come? How come I couldn't remember a thing? She continued brushing my hair. Now she was singing softly into my ears. I knew this song, but I'd never heard it sung so lovingly. This soft voice, these warm hands. I went completely limp. I had no more strength. But I didn't care. I was not going to sleep. Not until I remembered who she was. Remember, damn it. I reached out. I felt something. Sharp fragments of glass. Good. Good, I took them up. And squeezed as hard as I could. I felt the glass digging into my palm. I was losing blood, but I was gaining consciousness. La. I finally managed. Her eyes narrowed. Her mouth shaped itself into a smile. It's okay. I'm right here. So don't be afraid. The duller. No monocytes. Psychic erosion. Don't you get scared too? Did you come to see me? I could see clearly now. Law wasn't my patient this month. I was hers. I think I'm gonna say called it. This girl removed the psychic erosion inside me. Every last trace of it. Every last trace, that is, except for its name. Wow. I knew her. Yes, I met her a month ago, outside of this house. But that wasn't the first time. Back then. Well, I think this might actually be a good place to stop, so I think next time we'll actually finish this off. So until then, take care, and I will see you then. And after we finish things off, I'll also probably take a little while to talk about the characters as well, and everything, and my thoughts on everything. So, yeah. Look forward to that, and I will see you then.